Must we articulate in order to comprehend? How's everybody doing today? I'm Thomas, and welcome to my channel. I focus on educational topics that I think would be beneficial for people if they were exposed to them. Things that are generally quite off the beaten path, but things that have central importance. Things that I've researched over the many years of doing research and in all kinds of different subjects, from physics and chemistry and astronomy and all of the sacred versions of those things, and nutrition and health and training and math and geometry and the sacred versions of those, music, also the sacred version of that, and meditation. So those are kind of some of the main topics that I focus on. And this topic here is something that we use to kind of integrate all of the different subjects. So this thing here is called the Tree of Life, and it's a diagram of our, more or less, of our faculties of consciousness. Now, there's been some debate about some of these words. Faculties of consciousness, another word for faculty might be abilities or capabilities or aspects. And then consciousness is a word that some people have problems with too. But it's, you could say, awareness. You could say, knowing. Some of the other words don't exactly cut it. Consciousness, just taken broadly as a way of getting something in your head, of becoming aware of it. And this diagram shows us our 12 faculties of consciousness. 10 of them are spheres. Here is number 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then there is a thing here called the abyss, which is an implied sphere or circle. And then there is a 0 above the tree, for a total of 12 different faculties, 12 different capabilities, or 12 different aspects of consciousness. And, I do like the word consciousness there, because consciousness has many, many aspects, and that's why it's difficult to define, but it's an umbrella term that all of these different faculties or different abilities all fit under the umbrella of consciousness, where the 10th sphere here is about survival. This is our animal consciousness, our wild animal. This is our fight or flight response, our survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle. So this is a form of consciousness, but you wouldn't really consider it to be like a form of thinking. It's really like pre-thinking. So, you want to use a word like consciousness, which is an umbrella term that fits these things. So whereas, then the 9th sphere has to do with our heightened receptivity and our ability to, to practice things over and over again until we get them, so that we can memorize, because this is what's going when we're growing up in the home in the first years of our life, and we are soaking up everything like a sponge. We're watching what our caregivers are doing, and we're learning to do the same thing. We're imitating them, and in order to imitate them, we have to practice it over and over again. If our caregivers are showing us how to brush our teeth, we have to master all of these different movements. You got to you got to screw off the cap of the toothpaste. You got to squeeze it onto your toothbrush. You have to coordinate all of these different movements, and we take it for granted at this point. But when we're young, that something like that might take, weeks or months to master that. You have to do it over and over again, but first you have to copy somebody, and then you have to, memorize it, imitate it, and then eventually you can kind of make it your own. You could put your own little flair in how you put your toothpaste on. Look, I did it like the Aquafresh commercials where they have it like a wave. They put their toothpaste in there like a wave. Well, you can do that, but not until you've kind of mastered the basic idea. So that's a form of consciousness, but it isn't really. It's not thinking, and it doesn't fit into certain other categories that people might prefer instead of consciousness. But consciousness is an overarching term that fits this kind of faculty also. The A-sphere is more orthodox in terms of thinking. This is our left brain thinking, the most rudimentary left brain thinking that we have. Our rational faculty and our belief systems, whereas the ninth sphere is like our domestic consciousness, what we're getting growing up in the home. This is really the public consciousness, what we're getting when we're going out into the real world. We're a little bit older. This is like preschool. And this is, once we go to school, then we hear the opinions of the teachers, and we go to church and we hear the opinions of the preachers. We go to the little league and we hear the opinions of the coach, and they all tell us, what we're supposed to believe, how we're supposed to behave, what is the paradigm, and what are the paragons of behavior. How are we supposed to behave? And if we believe all that and we buy into it and we do it ourselves, we find that we get the path of least resistance into the A-sphere, which is where all the resources are located. This is where the establishment is located. This is where all of the institutions are located. So this is really where all the prestige is. And so it's a valuable thing to be able to get a easy path into the A-sphere. Now, unfortunately, usually, you're a junior member of the A-sphere at best. But it's an illusory kind of promotion, especially given that the A-sphere in its very nature is a trickster. The fact that you believe something, doesn't mean that it's true. In fact, the fact that you believe something, is actually an admission that you don't know it. So the A-sphere and reason has a lot of pitfalls in it, like circular reasoning and, making assumptions and, not following a firm chain of reasoning. So this thing here, the A-sphere, which you could think of as thinking, is a minefield. But it is another one of our faculties of consciousness. It is a useful faculty of consciousness. But as the world is right now, it's just swollen up out of proportion. The A-sphere is kind of like for for a lot of people in the world right now, the world consists only of the 10th sphere, the 9th sphere, and the A-sphere. And the rest of it is not even on their radar. So that's what the tree is useful for doing, is alerting us to the fact that there's this whole other world of consciousness out there, and that it's all within us, and it just needs to be developed. It just needs to be opened up. So that's my rant on that. But so where the A-sphere is what is really referred to as the real world. The seventh sphere is really more like the imaginary world. And so the seventh sphere is people who have tasted the eighth sphere and or sniffed the eighth sphere, and they smelled a rat. They were like, there's something wrong here, that people continue to fail upward, and I hear all this double talk, and people are using all these different talking points to illustrate the truth, but it's not the truth. It's just something that keeps getting repeated over and over again. And the mere fact that you just keep repeating something over and over again doesn't make it true. And the fact that everybody believes it, everybody knows that doesn't make it true either. And people at the seventh sphere have become cognizant of this. They have become conscious of this. And so imagination is another form of another ability or capability of consciousness. But it's not really thinking. You could think of it as being maybe right brain thinking, which, this whole is about the right brain, and this is about the left brain. So this is a verbal thing, and this is a vision thing. And so our imagination is in images. It's thinking in images. And so when we kind of bail out of the eighth sphere and come over here and use our imaginative faculty, we imagine something better than what's this. And then we also use other aspects of the seventh sphere, such as our inspiration and our intuition, our creative process of being able to make things that didn't already exist, and then also our pleasure principle, our ability to put things into harmonious wholes that are pleasing to people. We end up coming up with alternatives to the eighth sphere that attempt to improve upon them. So the seventh sphere attempts to present alternatives to the eighth sphere that are better than what the eighth sphere offers. And so the seventh sphere also allows us to climb higher on the tree. It gives us that creative spark and that inspiration, which is really like the 1% of the impetus we need to start climbing up to the higher aspects of the tree, which requires the 99% perspiration, which starts to come in here at the sixth sphere. Now, the sixth sphere is our center. This is where we are located in general. It is our free will faculty. This is our ability to pay attention and our ability to make decisions. Again, you wouldn't think of this in general as thinking, but it's definitely a faculty of consciousness. And so, unfortunately, free will, the paying attention part of free will is a vector. So you pay attention to something. Free will has a direction. Not free will in particular, but paying attention has a direction. And so in general, we find ourselves paying attention to this matrix here down here again, because this is our comfort zone. This is what we're comfortable paying attention to, because this is what we've always paid attention to growing up. This is what we've been told we should pay attention to. And this is what we have been rewarded for paying attention to. So we keep our attention on here. But the other aspect of free will is our ability to make decisions. And so at a certain point, we become desirous of getting out of this matrix. And so we decide, I'm going to ignore my conditionings, my attachments, my behavior patterns, and I'm going to turn myself around to face, to put my attention on the upper aspects of the tree, on the more spiritual aspects of life. But that requires a great amount of courage to turn your back and ignore your conditionings and to tune into what's actually going on right now. And that's where paying attention, gets diverted, and you move it up here, and it's kind of like staring into nothingness, because these areas of these higher faculties of our consciousness have not been really developed yet, certainly not to the extent that these have been developed. And so we are kind of looking at the empty set. We're looking into our new faculties, but they're atrophied at best and completely undeveloped in some cases. So the beginning of that, to develop it, is to get into a dialogue with the fifth sphere, which is our karma, or it's what you think of as the enforcement of the law, our sense of justice. Okay, this is another sense, not necessarily thinking, but it is really thinking. It's like a kind of analysis, a higher level of thinking that's going on here, whereas this is thinking. The right brain, the left brain thinking is how to, separate things into different categories. This is the same. It's separating things into categories, but it's separating things into categories based on their form, their function, and their interrelationship, meaning they're deeper, below the surface aspects. This is separating things into different categories based on their surface aspects. So this is a deeper form of what you would call analysis, whereas the fourth sphere on the opposite side is about synthesis. So this kind of analysis is required for our sense of justice, but it's really like our karma. Karma is like what comes around goes around. As you sow, so shall you reap. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You can think of a mirror being right here, and we act here at the sixth sphere, and if we're paying attention, we get immediate feedback on our actions. Karma feeds back based on violence, waste, and violation. So if our actions are wasteful or violent, we get that same action coming back to us. And that is a bitter pill, or a tough lesson. And so that if we're paying attention, we can learn to modify our behavior so that it is not so wasteful and not so violent. And then we get better feedback from that. And we can continue to be in this dialogue with our karma in order to clean up our own behavior, because it's telling us what we're doing wrong. And so we can clean up our behavior just by paying attention to our karma. Now, our karma is the enforcement of the natural law, but the law itself is articulated here at the fourth sphere. This is a cosmology, or an ancient holy book, theory of everything, grand unified theory. All of these things are articulations of the natural law according to a long period of cultural-wide observations and investigations, experimentations, experiences, and all other forms of testing of actually determining how the universe works, how it operates, where it came from, who is God, who are we, what are we doing here, all of these different questions, and what are all the interrelationships, how do all these things all work together in this great symphony that we call the universe. So this brings all of those things together, and it doesn't mean that the holy book is completely right. It just means that it's based on a sincere investigation, and that all the holy books need to be updated once in a while to account for new anomalies, new findings, and new investigations. But the better the cosmology is, the longer it lasts. Okay, then we move up into the abyss. This is our psychic powers, psychic heat, psychic receptivity. These are being able to recognize omens and being able to act upon omens. Okay, then 3, 2, and 1 are our divine faculties within: omnipotence, all-knowing, omniscience, omnipotence, all powerful, all powerful, tapped into through sound synchronization. And then second sphere is omniscience, all knowing, or wisdom, or ability to solve problems, tapped into through inner vision. And then the first sphere is omnipresence, all present, all at once, everywhere, all everything, eternally. And this is our unifying factor, uh, which is tapped into by making yourself absolutely silent and going to your absolute deepest center. And then the zero sphere above the tree is related to the nothingness of the universe and the mystery, because the zero itself isn't in the universe; it's outside the universe. It's that topology, that 16th degree of freedom that allows us to actually exit the universe. And the zero sphere is outside the universe because it's part of the creator. The creator has a part of itself that is not in the universe, and so we do not have direct access to that, but we do have some kind of indirect access because we can understand the creator to a certain extent. Anyway, that's the kind of the short version on the introductory version on the Tree of Life. Now, to go into a slightly more advanced teaching is where you would take the whole tree, because you can apply the tree to anything. And so you choose to shrink down the tree and apply it to each one of the spheres. And so this is really like fractalizing it. You got 12 mini faculties here, 12 mini faculties here, and so on, for a total of 144 different fractal faculties, or what I would refer to as stages of life. But those stages are not chronological, they're dramatic stages. So there's 144 separate dramas that we move through as we move through life. Today, we're looking at stage number 111. And the question was, must we articulate in order to comprehend? Now, this stage here is located in the second sphere, and it's really the 8th fractal of the second sphere. Now, actually, very coincidentally, yesterday we did the opposite of this. So we did the second fractal of the A sphere yesterday, which is called Unforeseen Consequences. This is where we put together a plan and we tried to execute it, but there were all kinds of things that we didn't consider in the plan. And so it threw our plan off track, and we were beset with unforeseen consequences. But here we're doing the opposite. We're in the second sphere, omniscience, all-knowing, wisdom, the ability to solve problems, the ability to anticipate. And then we're in the 8th fractal of that. So we're in the the logic and reason and belief systems, the simple thinking about separating things into categories based on their surface characteristics of but that aspect within the second sphere. And so number 111 is what, incidentally, if you'd like me to send you a list of all those 144 fractal faculties, just click the link in the description and I'll send it out to you for free. But so number 111 is called the Unpacking. The Unpacking, stage 111, is about the energy expended in bringing some ecstatic clarity back into our normal waking state. The words don't do it justice and have to be refined over and over to approximate the meaning and assimilate the information of the mind-blowing jolt or flash of ecstatic experience. We then need to realize or to recalibrate our worldview, a new normal. Ecstasy, experience of the separate reality, is over, but things are changed forever, a new normal. Knowing is direct. It occurs in the absence of mediating symbols. No need for manipulation of symbols to stand in for actual reality. Bypass the left brain, mind, or thinking. The transmission comes in a package as a jolt or a flash. We can see or feel information as well as hear it. Unpacking is the bridge between. Knowledge comes in the same package or the same message as thoughts, but knowledge or wisdom or revelation of awareness precedes thought. Wisdom or revelation is only subsequently clothed in words, translated, then articulated or unpacked. There is a great expenditure of energy to voice this silent knowledge, to unpack this package of jolt or flash of consciousness. Articulation is putting this knowledge or this package into words, and it requires inordinate amounts of energy. Thinking is giving verbal form to a reality that is already known. Even without the unpacking, we are still able to know what the words were going to indicate. So why do we unpack at all? Knowledge is the direct perception of reality without the use of thoughts. But we still insist on unpacking. Awareness arises from our faculties of consciousness. They degrade one body or one sphere at a time. Prophecy must be unpacked too, just like ecstasy. Okay, so that is a short version there on stage number 111, the unpacking. But the general idea is just that when we get into an ecstatic state, whether that's through some kind of psychedelic, or whether it's through an incredibly deep meditation or some kind of other beatific experience, we are hit with a whole like a blinding flash of just a knowing of how we already know it, but in order to turn that into words that our conscious mind can work with, requires this unpacking, which requires a ton of energy. So and it's not necessary, as it says, we do not need to unpack this energy, in order to understand what we have just experienced. Even without the unpacking, we are still able to know what the words were going to indicate. We don't need the words, but in our mind, especially with our conditionings and this asphere thing, we're trying to put this jolt or flash of knowledge into our comfort zone. So that's what the unpacking is about. And thanks for staying for the rest of the video, or for the whole video. Click the link below if you like that list. Subscribe to the channel, share it with others, and you can donate through Venmo or Cash App if you like. Those links those addresses are also in the description. Okay, well, stay tuned for future videos on the Tree of Life, and then many other subjects that will be following up from that. Again, we do the Tree of Life first because that gives you kind of the common denominator of all these different subjects that be presented, and you'll be able to assimilate the knowledge that you get from these other subjects much more easily if you have a good grasp of how the tree of life works, because it's really like the common denominator for all of these other things, because it's content free. It's like a skeleton, so it's something that Crowley called it a mystical filing cabinet. So I'm trying to give you the filing cabinet so that when I give you all the files, you know where to put them. It's a diagram that shows you where to put everything. And so when all the other stuff comes, you know, okay, this goes in the top drawer. This goes in the bottom drawer. That's so just an analogy, but that's a general idea. So have a beautiful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.